Alrighty, first off, sorry for all my regular subscribers and people who know me. I know my content on this channel is mostly about RPGs and JRPGs, but I really do have a soft spot for the Resident Evil series, especially the old school games, and Resident Evil 2 I absolutely loved, so I felt like I really need to talk about Resident Evil 3. Alright, so let me just make this clear in this video. I'm going to be talking a bit negatively about Resident Evil 3 Remake, but let me just say this right off the bat. I like the game. I think it's good. I like it enough to play through it multiple times. I love the visuals and the overall gameplay is good, and it kept me very entertained. The problem I have with the game is why the developers decided to create the game in this way, sort of. So many aspects of this game I question, and it really bothers me how this game turned out, especially since I came from absolutely loving Resident Evil 2 Remake. Let me just play you a small snippet of a video that I made previously that shows how I feel about Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2, before its remake dropped, was one of my favorite games of all time. I grew up with that game and played it so many times. I eventually knew that game better than I knew myself, probably. The police station, the sewers, the lab. I loved that game. From the day it was released in 1998 up until the remake that dropped in 2019, I literally, at the bare minimum, played that game throughout the years, at least 100 times. And then when I played the remake, I was hooked all over again. And not just because of nostalgia, but of the simple fact that this is how a remake is supposed to be made. You can tell all the love and consideration for longtime fans such as myself that went into this game when creating it. It does everything bigger and better, and it expands on things that the developers simply couldn't do back in the day because of hardware limitations. It even added some things that just makes sense, and it just looks great. Oh, it looks amazing. It's an 8-hour game, and I almost have 70 hours in it according to Steam. Let me not focus too much on Resident Evil 2. Anyway, Resident Evil 2 wasn't perfect by any means, but you could tell a lot of love and care went into making the game. The same can't be said about Resident Evil 3 Remake. I'm not sure if they had years to make this game, but it feels like they could have used a lot more time to flesh out some areas. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't think anyone's clamoring at the bit for Resident Evil 3 to be released all that much. I could have waited another year to get a more substantial game. Now, I don't hold the same love for the original Resident Evil 3 as much as I do for the original Resident Evil 2, but I can't say that I spent a lot of time with the original Resident Evil 3 to a point where I just don't agree with some of the changes that were made in the remake. Now, there are some things you can change up in the remake because, you know, it's a remake and you want to make the game flow a bit better, or you want to dive deeper into some ideas that you couldn't flesh out because of hardware limitations. But I feel you can't change key moments in the game. Now, there are a couple of things in Resident Evil 3 that they decided to change. In my opinion, though, most of them aren't really worth talking about, but there is one thing I really didn't care for. In the original Resident Evil 3, you had a boss encounter with Nemesis in the clock tower area, and it was a rather tough battle to deal with, and I also felt like the battle was earned. You see, when I first played the original Resident Evil 3, just like many people, I was terrified when I ran into Nemesis. Not only was it a drain on your resources like ammo and health, but it was also a surefire way to get killed. And for a lot of the game, or at least a fair portion of the game, it felt that way. Leading up to the mandatory boss battle with Nemesis at the clock tower, here you can't run. You have to use your resources to survive. To me, it felt like I had no choice but to face my fears and fight this monster after it's been chasing me for a long time. And again, the battle felt like it was earned. In the remake, you fight Nemesis a couple of times, and half of them I feel are just unearned. Like, the battle on the rooftop was fun, but I feel it wasn't quite earned because the time you spent with Nemi chasing you was so little. And then there's a battle with his transformed state in the roundabout. I didn't like this battle, not because of the way it's set up, but because Nemesis transformed, I feel, much too soon. As soon as the fight started, I was loathing that getting hunted down by him was pretty much done. And I felt like that portion of the game of getting hunted down by him was only getting started. The last two fights with him were whatever, I suppose. Nothing good, nothing all that bad either. But then there's how Nemesis transforms. What the hell is this? The dude gets hit by some random explosion that has nothing to do with Jill, and it seems like the fire is causing him to be in great pain. And we just fought him on a rooftop that was raining fire all the time, and it seemed like fire wasn't exactly super effective on him. I don't know why now all of a sudden fire is suddenly his kryptonite. Maybe he finally got hit with enough damage and fire finally affects him, but no, that's stupid, and I shouldn't have to make that small leap in faith for this kind of logic. The whole area right here is useless. There is nothing but 2 or 3 items here and no enemies. Now, if it was up to me, there could have been a cutscene here where Nemi jumps in front of Jill, and I don't know, maybe Jill dodges him and she's able to disarm him of his rocket launcher, and she picks up the rocket launcher and uses the last rocket to get him in that state. This, as it is, just screams lazy and screams that we need to get him to transform real quick, but we can't waste time creating another cutscene to make it happen. I don't know, guys, that just really irked me. Let's talk about the visuals. The game looks phenomenal. The attention to detail on characters' faces is just breathtaking. This RE engine is great when it's in the right hands, which is interesting about the game being in the right hands because this game, I believe, was made by a completely different team from the Resident Evil 2 remake. So maybe that will answer a lot of my questions and soothe some of my gripes that I have with this game. Anyway, when it comes to visuals, they're amazing, but they do take a step back. The game is not as gory as Resident Evil 2, and zombies don't have their limbs coming off as much. You can shoot them off, but they explode for some reason, and the ragdoll physics on the zombies are just gone, and the zombies themselves are the same zombies from Resident Evil 2 remake. Most models and even animations are the same. That's not something you'll notice, I suppose, unless you play Resident Evil 2 remake for as much as I have, and you could say the same thing about the original Resident Evil 2 and 3, and I hold it against that one too, but this time we're in 2020, it's a little bit different and more detail could have been put into these models. Now let me touch on the dodge mechanic really quick. I felt it's too strong. Zombies and some enemies become a joke after you've mastered it, and Nemi is completely harmless once you got the timing down. Maybe for hardcore fans like me, I feel it's a bit broken and maybe OP, but for people just playing the game casually, I don't know, maybe it's just perfect for them. So that's all I'm gonna say about the dodging. Now, as I said before, there are a lot of questionable design choices for this game that I could come sideways at, but one thing that irked me the most is the lack of outfits. You have a fair amount of options in Resident Evil 2 remake, but here it's just one unlockable outfit. Why? There's only a total of 3 outfits, and one of which you had to pre-order the game in order to get it. And yes, I gotta compare it to the original on this front. In that game, you had like 5 unlockable outfits you can get. Why aren't they here? Hell, they don't have to be unlockables. I would have gladly paid them as DLC. But the development team and Capcom was like, nah, we don't need your money. But you know, one of the things I love doing in games is changing character outfits, and here is just almost non-existent to a point where I have to rely on mods to see something different, you know? It's one of the reasons I get all my games on PC nowadays, because of all the mods you can do. Anyway, guys, there are plenty of other things I can go off on Resident Evil 3 Remake, but I just want to reiterate that I did enjoy the game. I like it. I think it's good, but it could have been so much better than what we got. Hell, I'm probably going to play the game a couple more times before I put it down for a long time, but I can tell you right now, I'm not going to go back to it as much as I did with Resident Evil 2 Remake. Hell, I might play Resident Evil 2 Remake another 5 times after this. Anyway, I'm going to count my blessings on this regard, because Resident Evil 2 Remake could have turned out this way and I would have been really upset, but Resident Evil 3 turned out a little bit half-baked in my opinion, so if I had to choose one that was going to be sacrificed to make the other one look good, I suppose, I definitely would have chose Resident Evil 3. Anyway, guys, that's it for this video. Let me know what you guys think. I promise I will have JRPG related content for the next video. I just felt I had to talk about this one. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.